Could we start? Good morning. أسعد الله صباحكم بكل خير.
Morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to panel 8 of the Strategic Studies Unit 5th Annual Conference. And this is about Nordic shields, Baltic and Scandinavian defense strategies. It's an honor to moderate this panel with my three speakers, as the fourth panelist has apologized and he wouldn't be able to join us. And I would like to start this session, and we will allocate 15 minutes for each presenter. And after the three presenters, we will have a 25-minute question-answer session. And then we will give every panelist 4 minutes to respond to the questions. Let's start with Margarita Šešelgytė. Margarita Šešelgytė is Director of Institute of International Relations and Political Science in Lithuania, a PhD holder from the Institute of International Relations and Political Science with dissertation on the common EU defense identity. She is an honorary fellow at Baltic Defense College, member of the ARIS Group Board, and member of editorial board of the Baltic Security and Defense Review. She worked as Deputy Director of Studies at Vilnius University IIRPS. She also worked at the European Committee under the government of the Republic of Lithuania. Her main research interests are the EU foreign and security policy, security, defense studies, international relations, and foreign policy analysis. Dr.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind presentation, and thank you very much for the invitation for this very interesting panel. It is not very often that I have an opportunity to hear about so many regions and their security and defense priorities, so I've learned a lot. So now it's my time to shine and to say a couple of words about Lithuania, which is a small country with population 2.8 million. We are the small country. But I want to say also that many years ago, in 15th century, Lithuania has been the biggest state in Europe. So various occupations and very bad security situation in the region. We are the crossroads of the big power competition, made our certain changes that we at the moment are the small country, one of the smallest countries in Europe. But what persisted throughout these years is that we have the same enemy. Russia has been one of the biggest enemies of Lithuania for many years, and it still remains one of the biggest enemies and biggest threats to Lithuania, including conventional and non-conventional threats. Since the 90s, Lithuanian security policy has undergone, I would say, 3 stages. The first stage, when we were building our state institutions and our armed forces from the scratch as an independent country after the Soviet occupation, we were searching for the security guarantees, trying to prove that we are good enough to be part of the Euro-Atlantic family. When we became members of NATO, we turned our attention of our defense policy towards the out-of-area operations, abandoning conscription, abandoning territorial defense, believing that collective defense is the solution for our security, because we are a small country. We cannot defend ourselves against a huge enemy across our borders. We've invested a lot in this direction. Lithuania was the smallest country leading the PRT mission in Afghanistan during the in ISAF operation in Afghanistan. But after the 2008, in particular after 2014, we once again reconsidered our defense policy, not substantially. Collective defense still remains one of the pivotal principles of our defense, but we realized that we have to invest more in our national capabilities. The defense budget has been increasing. In 2016, we reintroduced conscription, and we are more focused on territorial defense, and today we are talking total defense and the resilience of the society as well, to be able to stand against Russian invasion until NATO forces come in. I would say since 2022, our defense policy did not undergo substantial changes because we were focused on boosting our national defense capabilities already since 2015, 2016, the first Russian aggression against Ukraine. But what has increased the speed and urgency in which how we invest in our defense spending, what capabilities we buy, and what plans we make in order to boost the territorial defense, cooperation with our partners, and also increase the resilience of the society. So there are three things that I want to concentrate during my short presentation. One of the priorities is procurement and military personnel. The other priority is the collective defense, and the last priority is, not last, but one of the priorities, the third priority is building the resilience. So first of all, talking about the procurement and personnel, I want to start my elaboration on this priority, talking about the defense spending. Lithuania has made a serious steps to increase the defense spending since 2014. At some point when we were concentrating on out-of-area operations, our defense spending was 0.8% of GDP. And it increased ever since. Last year, we achieved 3.2% of defense spending, and this year, our government has announced that up to in 2026, we will reach the capacity of 5 to 6% of the GDP for defense. It's a big number, but we understand that we are a frontline state, and that is very important for us to show for our partners, although our government says that this is not the most important thing, but also to boost our capabilities in this crucial time when the Russia is also increasing its defense spending and investing a lot in the defense industries, in defense production, and building up their armed forces. So with this money, the most important things that we will concentrate is air defense, ammunition, and tanks. And we already had a certain plan to invest more in these categories, but this plan would be moved 5-6 years faster. And we already acquired HIMARS systems. We have signed a very big acquisition procurement contract with Germans, which will allow us to buy 44 German Leopard tanks. We are also investing in drones and anti-drone systems, multi-purpose helicopter platforms, also howitzers, medium-range mobile radars, infantry fighting vehicles, and other important things. Yeah, so these are the plans in terms of the procurement, and also we are planning to boost our personnel because it's also a part of the capability development. There are not so many steps done in this direction, and numbers of military personnel have not increased over the last years, except with the changes in the conscription law, the new law that will come in force next year. Will require all young individuals aged from 18 to 22 years to conduct the compulsory military service for 9 months. This is for men, but also women can be involved in the voluntary service. And by this step, the plan is to expand the active reserve. From now we have around 7,000 people, and the plan is to have 50,000 people by 2030. So these are the directions in procurement and personnel development. Another direction is host nation support and collective defense. Collective defense is one of the most important pillars of our defense policy. And NATO has always been an important part of our consideration where we stand and how we will defend ourselves. Although this has changed again over the last year, the level of cooperation with NATO. I remember in 2008, 2009, NATO even haven't had any defense plans for the Baltic countries. So we moved far away from that. New defense plans have been adopted in the Vilnius summit in 2023. And basically what has changed is that additional guarantees, changing the concept how NATO is getting involved in the case of potential attack. So prior to 2023, the defense plans were developed around the principle deterrence by punishment. Now we are talking about the principle of forward defense, defense by denial, and that also implies stationing of additional troops in Lithuania. Since 2017, we were blessed to have a German-led enhanced forward presence battalion in Lithuania, plus American troops in Lithuania, and since 2023, those numbers are increasing. And Germany has committed to station the brigade-level capabilities. They are already coming to Lithuania. So by 2027, we will have the full brigade, German-led brigade, which will be a part of NATO presence, NATO forward defense in Lithuania, and we also have 1,000 American troops. That's a big influx, and this requires a lot of efforts on our side, and we have been investing already for a couple of years, and we have a very strong commitment to invest more than €1 billion in developing infrastructure for training, but also building up military towns. So it's a huge project. It's the biggest project of military infrastructure for Lithuania, but we hope that this will be an important step in strengthening our security. Defense industry has been neglected in Lithuania for a long time. We are basically buyers, not the sellers. We do not develop systems, of course, because we are a small country, and most of our products are dual-use products. But additional efforts have been taken to also build up this capacity. Investment systems have been created on the government level to boost startups. Also, there are meetings between the MOD and the defense industry companies, where the information is exchanged, what the military needs and what are the needs on the defense industry side. Drones are one of the most common products which are needed now by Lithuanian armed forces, and our developments can offer. So 10 million program has been offered on the MOD side to buy Lithuanian drones and actually to invest in their development. They are being, prototypes are being tested, brought to Ukraine, tested there, and then Lithuanians are buying or not those drones. So we are also strong in laser products. That's one of the Lithuanians' unique traits. So that direction is also being developed. And the last but not least, resilience, social resilience is another area which is very important. We increased the number of conscripts. We also cooperating with NGOs, Lithuanian Riflemen's Union, which is the paramilitary organization in Lithuania, has been growing over the last years, and it's going to be a part of the defense if something bad happens. There is a cooperation with NGOs, and there is a new structure of commandants, which is created alongside Lithuania, and allowing the ordinary civilians to enroll into these structures, to learn, to train, and be useful if the war happens in the country. Additional investment in cyber operations, in anti-cyber measures, in information measures. A lot has been done. Lithuania every year receives around 3,000 something information attacks and cyber attacks. So additional structures have been built to counter those attacks, and also to inform the society how the antagonistic forces are working and how to protect ourselves. So now I finish, but I have to say a couple of words that what we are facing at the moment with the lot of conflicts happening in the world and the changes in the US administration keeps us puzzled. And we are also, not that we are reconsidering our major defense priorities, we will still invest in our national capabilities and still invest in the collective defense, having in mind that we have US troops also on the ground, but we're also trying to think about the strategies not to put all the eggs in one basket, and German brigade is one of the directions. Thank you very much.
المتحدثة الثانية اليوم في هذه الجلسة دكتورة سينثيا بروك، وهي نائبة المدير ورئيسة برنامج أبحاث الشرق الأوسط في المعهد اللاتفي للشؤون الدولية، وهي باحثة الدكتوراه في جامعة ريغا سترادينيس لاتفيا، ومحاضرة زائرة في جامعة ريغا سترادينيس وكلية الدراسات العليا.
The Riga Strategic University and the Riga Graduate School of Law. She holds a Master in International Relations and Diplomacy and in Public International Law and Human Rights. She is the editor of the Latvian Foreign and Security Policy Yearbook, an annual publication that provides comprehensive assessment and strategic recommendations for Latvian foreign and security policies. The title of this presentation is Defense Strategies of Small States, the Transformation of the Latvian Army.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for a kind presentation. Thank you, Omar, and your team for inviting me and having this great event. Congratulations. I think it's been a great success. I was invited to talk about Latvian armed force development, even though I am not a military analyst and I am not a defense strategist. As it was introduced, my heart belongs to Middle East research, so it was a great pleasure to come here. But I have some notes that I'm willing to share with you. At the same time, I am in a bit of pickle because yesterday my colleague from Estonia expressed and presented Estonian viewpoint on security and defense. Now Margarita before me, and I have to admit that, you know, there is not a lot of things that I can add to the holistic approach, because we are three Baltic states, three small Baltic states that have experienced some similarities in our history. We have the same enemy, Russian Federation, ever since we have gained and regained our independence later on. So, of course, considering our capabilities, we have been working together to achieve the goal and get integrated into transatlantic community, starting with the European Union and NATO later on, and of course now also working very much on internal security, strengthening our capabilities, not just on national level, but also cooperating with one another, and also cooperating to our Scandinavian countries that we are very happy that we have also them joining NATO just recently. But I wanted to start also with a bit of historical context, because if we think about Latvia, all three Baltic states, we can say that we gained our independence back in 1918. And we started to position ourselves on international arena, started to develop, of course, relations with the whole globe, politically, in diplomatical position, and also military. But as you know very well, of course, that independence wasn't lasting long. With Nazi Germany signing secret deals with Soviet Union, we came under the Soviet sphere of influence in Europe, or basically we were occupied by Soviet Union in 1940s, 1941 by Nazi Germany, and then later in 1944 back again by Soviet Union, and spent more than 50 years under the occupation of Soviet Union. So therefore, I think it is important, if we think about Latvian development in terms of economy, defense, or military, we cannot consider that development within 107 years. We have to consider the development that has started actually after we regained our independence in 1991. So it gives us just 30 plus years to achieve our security strategies. But I think we have done a tremendous job. Of course, after we regained our independence in 1991, the foreign and security policy goals and strategies were clear for us. We wanted to get back into transatlantic community, and that meant that we worked very hard towards getting into NATO and getting into European Union. We are arguing in Latvia that NATO provides us with security, while European Union provides us with safety. And those two foreign security policy strategies haven't changed ever since. They are there, and we are working very aimfully towards those goals. And of course, at first, and also thinking about the development of our defense and strategy, I've highlighted three periods. The beginning from initial stages after regaining independence, 1990s till early 2000s, then getting into NATO and working through Russian invasion Georgia, and then of course annexation of Crimea. That definitely shifted our security policies, and now after full-scale invasion in 2022, of course, also dramatic changes have been happening. But starting from the basics, so what we thought back in 2004, why was NATO important for us, and that is also something that's been discussed widely on international arena. It basically provided the most credible security guarantee for Latvia, and if we think about that, we think about NATO 5th article, which calls for if attack on one NATO member state can be considered as attack to all, and that means also the reaction or individual or collective reaction to that on as a self-defense is something that can be considered and should happen. But of course, since 2014 and then after first Trump administration, and now even deeper when we hear all the talks about the European autonomy and strengthening European defense strategy, we very often refer to another article of NATO, which is Article number 3, that actually emphasizes that all NATO member states must be capable of defending themselves and contributing to collective defense. So even at the beginning, we very much aligned on NATO 5th article. We worked towards our fulfilling the requirements within NATO, but now on political and diplomatic level, the Article 3 actually plays even more role and affects national plans and adaptation plans within our security. So first of all, of course, starting from initial development, 1990s till early 2000s, of course, regaining our independence, we had nothing. We had just plenty of challenges. Still Russian troops remained in our territory while we started to regain our position on international arena. At the same time, while we had a plan to get into NATO or European Union, you know, the resistance within partners was quite strong. First of all, NATO members didn't know what actually we will brought on the table, how we will help to secure NATO or generally transatlantic community. Also, there were discussions what it will mean for NATO relations with Russia. So it wasn't, you know, self-evident path for us. We really needed to prove our point and needed to prove not just the fact that we can be security consumers, but that we can actually bring something on the table for general benefit. In early 90s, you know, in a time when we started to proceed towards NATO, we also joined the Partnership for Peace program, which was under NATO branch, that allowed us to gain NATO consultations, military exercises, get involved into practical support on our defense system, which was quite crucial. But if we think about the training and thinking about that our armed forces should align with the NATO standards if we are moving towards accession. Also, before joining NATO, we started to actively participate in international missions, and the first mission actually that our contingent was deployed was Operation Iraqi Freedom in 1996. Later on, after 2014, we went to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also in a framework of being not just security consumer, but also security provider. We are also currently operating and strengthening defense in transatlantic community with our participation in several missions that I will mention later on. Then, of course, 2004, 2014, we have got into NATO. We know all the requirements that we need to fulfill, including 2% of our GDP to our defense spending. We wasn't rushing towards that. We knew that it's something that need to be completed, but we were quite, calm in our approach, I would argue. But nevertheless, of course, Crimean annexation happened, and that changed our perceptions quite dramatically. And 2014 played a crucial role, not just to increase our defense spending. So by 2018, we reached 2% of our GDP. With a further increased plan. Back then, only 8 countries from 29 NATO member states were achieving 2%. All 3 Baltic states, of course, Poland, United States, United Kingdom, Romania, and Greece. Even nowadays, there's the biggest critique that is coming from United States is that we are not fulfilling that goal, meaning we as a NATO member states, but Baltic states are doing that. Also, of course, in 2016 NATO summit in Warsaw, decision was taken regarding the NATO troops being deployed in Baltic states and Poland, enhanced forward presence. We are also part of that. Our brigade is led by Canadians. And currently we have a couple of partners located in Latvia. I'm running out of time. Apart from NATO, we are also in 2017 joined Permanent Structural Cooperation, PESCO, that is a European Union Defense and Security Initiative, in order to strengthen our European Union defense capabilities, but very important side note that Latvia's interest is not developing EU army that would be, you know, a competitor to NATO. We are in a line that we should strengthen our internal capabilities that would help NATO, that would assist NATO capabilities, not vice versa. And then just to conclude, of course, Russian full-scale invasion in Ukraine in 2022 opened our eyes, I don't know from which time already, right? That, of course, reflected in our defense spending. Currently, we are spending to 3.6% of our GDP with the aim of increase to 5% in 2026, 2027. We still have discussions where we will get that money. We don't have oil, we don't have gas, so it's a bit of pickle for us in Baltic states, but nevertheless, the public support is there. The government know that this has to be done, and therefore also I believe we will achieve that goal. This in historical perspective, this is the biggest defense budget that we are having. So that reflects how important we are considering the geopolitical realities and Russian actions in Ukraine currently. I promise that I will mention our missions. We are currently participating in missions also in the Middle East. I just lost. It is in Lebanon, in Israel, in Iraq as well. And Margarita mentioned the importance of drones. I have to say my former boss currently is the Minister of Defense. So I have to share the aspect that we are leading the drone coalition that is currently existing of 17 states. Just this February, we celebrated 1-year anniversary of drone coalition. Together with United Kingdom, we have launched this project that we are very proud, first of all, helping to Ukraine. So within those foreign and security policy priorities, there is strong Latvian, strong EU, strong Latvian, strong NATO, and now definitely maximum support to Ukraine has come into picture. Our help to Ukraine has been around 1% of our GDP lately, so we are continuing to do that. And Drone Coalition is one of the greatest projects that we have had. And there's twofold situation. First, help to Ukraine, but also that allows us to strengthen our research and development drone system, cooperation with industry that allows strengthen our national capabilities, of course, as well. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Wow. Latvia.
And now we move to our third panelist, Dr. Mikael Weissmann. Dr. Mikael, he's a senior lecturer in systems science for defense and security at the Swedish Defense University in Stockholm. He co-convenes the Hybrid Threats Research Group and is the principal investigator of the project Building Resilience and Psychological Defense. His experiences lie in security, strategy, influence, and intelligence with focus on modern warfare, hybrid threats, foreign influence, and intelligence analysis. He is an expert on China, the Indo-Pacific, and the Balkans. He has extensive experience with staff rights war games. His work has appeared in leading journals and he is the lead editor of the Russians' War in Ukraine and Modern Warfare, Advanced Land Warfare and Hybrid Warfare, and the co-editor of Russian Warfare and Influence. Dr. Weissmann will talk about Sweden's alliances and defense transformations, strategic shifts in the wake of Russia's 2020.
Okay, thank you. No, thank you for the invitation. It's been a fantastic conference, Omar. You have done a great job. This range of people from around the world, the insight that has been shared, I mean, I've learned a lot. I sometimes say that without meaning it, but like at this conference, I've really learned a lot. And I hope this is a start for a lot of future cooperation. As I said, I'm going to talk about the Swedish alliance and defense transformations. I kind of calibrated this a little bit during the conference, because I've been noting that you as a group are really good at also the tactical and operational sides. So there will be less NATO-Swedish politics, more getting into the nitty-gritty details, which seems like this audience is more interested in. I will try to paint a broad picture, and I welcome questions both here and then afterwards if you want me to dig into certain aspects more in detail. So basically, I'm going to divide my presentation in three parts. First, I'm going to talk about the Sweden strategic shift and NATO membership, basically the setting for what is happening in Sweden. And as opposed to my colleagues here, for Sweden, this has been a major shift since we had been military non-aligned as a policy for like 200 years. So it's a big shift, as I will get to. Then I will talk about impact on the strategic level when it comes to force generation, force protection, force structure, force sustainment, and force readiness. And thirdly, I will say a little bit about operational and tactical considerations. And I should probably mention that until December, I was the deputy head of the land operations division at the Swedish Defense University. So there will be a little bit of an army bias to it, because that's the area I know most. So sorry that I might not give the best presentation about the naval and air force dimension. Yeah, so basically, once again, you hear someone say Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But this is crucial here, because that was what profoundly reshaped the security landscape of Northern Europe. And that's what prompted the small states like Sweden to undertake significant strategic reassessment. Basically, here I focus on the security environment in Sweden, which led to the historical decision to apply for NATO membership, as I mentioned. So when we look at the strategic shift and NATO membership, basically, as I said, that's the setting for everything that has happened. And it should be stressed that while we've had a long collaboration with NATO and the US, our European colleagues and allies, the actual membership application was the result of an acute external threat, basically the full-scale invasion of Russia. That changed everything, I'd say, in Sweden. With the invasion, there was a real, some would argue that's always been a real Russian threat, but I mean, it was acute and imminent, and it was a surprise. So there was a cross-party coalition that agreed that NATO was the best option for Swedish security. I mean, to cite the government assessment, quote, Swedish NATO membership is the best way to safeguard Sweden's security, stop quote. But it's not only a cross-party or elite-level view. The public support for NATO membership at the time had gotten to 60% positive, 23% negative. This might not, I don't know if this seems strange, but I mean, it's a, I don't have any graphs here, but you will see that in my paper later. I mean, this is a major shift from how it has used to be in Sweden. Basically, before 2013, the population was against NATO membership. After 2013, roughly equal. So it's this kind of big leap also when it comes to the public opinion. So as a result, we applied for membership in May 2022 and became full members in March 2024. Okay, so the thing here is that in a way, this was a continuation of previous collaborations. We have been historically close to NATO for a long time. Since the 1990s, we have strengthened our ability to collaborate. We joined Partnership for Peace 1994. In 2014, we got Enhanced Opportunities Partner status. 2016, Host Nation Support Agreement. The geopolitics have not changed. We are where we are. I mean, we are a cog in the Western defense. Historically, like Russia tends to be the enemy. That's kind of who we have normally fought, except the Danes, but that's kind of another story. We're good friends now. And then basically, so this ends up with the security considerations that, now after the end of the Cold War, we have more or less dismantled the armed forces, just thinking that we're going to do Afghanistan, etc. This kind of expeditionary peacebuilding, peacekeeping missions. So basically, we were not prepared for this. This was kind of very new for us. So why? I mean, it really was sudden. I mean, yes, there was a broad support, but we're still kind of getting to grasp with the suddenness and the limited or no debate that happened in connection to the membership. So we're kind of trying to, how to put it, like a little bit try to understand what has happened while people are not against what happened, if you see what I mean. Yeah, so that's basically where we are. And that's the context of everything, NATO membership and the war in Ukraine. Okay, so what are the implications of this? Let's start at the impact on the strategic level. Fourth generation. Basically, it was clear there was an increased need to focus on mobilization. We needed to reassess how best quickly and effectively we could mobilize military forces in response to threats. I mean, it's like our armed forces were down to really limited numbers. I mean, we could only set up like 1 or 2 brigades. There's debates on actually how much capacity we had, but like it's not like during the Cold War when we could mobilize several 100,000 people. So we were really, really, really small, and that's important to remember when it comes to this, like how imminent this threat was. At this time, we reinstated conscription, gender-neutral conscription this time. It had been paused, but it had never been dismantled. I don't know the English word for it, but basically we hadn't like taken away the laws about conscription, so we just restarted it. But here it should be said that the numbers we're playing with when it comes to fourth generation, we're talking about 8,500 people this year, up from like 5,000 to 6,000 people a few years ago. I mean, it's very small numbers. At the height of the Cold War, when it also only included men, the numbers were like 50,000 a year, and we could mobilize 800,000 personnel. So it's kind of, I mean, you see the difference, and here also you see why NATO and alliance building is so very important for us. We have put a lot of emphasis on integrating reserve forces, a lot of emphasis on training exercises with NATO allies to improve interoperability. This has been taken to a totally new level after us applying for membership. A lot of emphasis on educating officers. I mean, being at the Swedish Defense University, when I started 10 years ago, maybe I had 50 students, and now there might be 150 in the lecture hall. So it's kind of, it's a huge and quick transformation. There's also a lot of focus on public engagement, total defense. We've also developed and created our psychological defense agency, more cyber capacity. Force protection. Here it's, I mean, now we have a nuclear deterrence behind us as NATO members, and we're putting a lot of focus on hybrid warfare and being able to manage a full range of threats. Force structure. We're trying to get a hand of being part of a larger structure, developing brigades for divisions within a core structure, trying to educate enough officers to fill NATO slots, and also we're trying to grasp these new capabilities that come with being a NATO member. It's not just what we have, we kind of have to use what others have too. Force sustainment. We have a strong defense industry in Sweden, but this is kind of, there's also new challenges and opportunities. We have more partners to sell to, but there are also other political considerations to take into account when it comes to who we sell to and what. Force readiness and projection. We have put forward land forces in Latvia, and we're a framework nation in NATO's forward land forces in Finland. I actually noted today that the battalion commander in Latvia is my former student, so it's kind of also tells something about how small the Swedish forces is. He got distinction, so he's very good. Final 1-minute comment on operational and tactical level. When it comes to force employment, a reshift back to territorial defense, focus on operational readiness and training, and also getting to grasp to the mindset of not being alone, and also Sweden's role as a logistic hub, being responsible and part of the rear in a NATO context. That's a very new mindset for the Swedish officers, because we should meet the Russians on the beach and preferably kill them there and get rid of them. So now it's a mindset change. Not that people are against it or anything, but it takes time to process when you have spent maybe 40 years working in a different way. Yeah, that's basically a big picture of the Swedish situation. And the conclusion would be here is that it's very clear to Sweden and also to other smaller states that you cannot do it alone. There is a need for cooperation and alliances, or a guardian or security guarantor. So it's very important with these kinds of meetings and the cooperation we can develop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. وين الشباب؟
My question is for all the panel, and I want to know why do you think, or what are the considerations that you find for the European Union to include you in the agreement, and how were you received by the European Union, being so small states?
Thank you very much. Great presentations. I have 2 questions. First one is going to Mikael. You talked about the reasons why Sweden decided to join NATO, but I would highly appreciate if you can elaborate on it more. What drove this decision? And primarily because did you feel any threat coming from Russia? Did you think that Russia was going to invade Sweden as well? And second part of the question, do you now feel more secure as you are in NATO now? Does it give the sense of security to you? Second question is going to Margarita and Sintija. This NATO framework as a security guarantee, it was, for a while, it was quite ensuring that now you are in an umbrella security alliance, but now it looks like it is fading, right? Trump's policy is some NATO member countries which are not that much committed. And against this background, there are calls for European army or some new structure. So what's the take of Baltic states on this sort of initiatives? Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks very much for a very interesting panel. Can I take 2 liberties here? One, which is to kind of ask the same question to this panel as I did the previous one, and also to potentially just reference Henrik's lovely talk yesterday. And my question is this. You've given a beautiful kind of strategic vision of where these three states would lie. I just would like to repeat this operational issue of, okay, what does territorial defence actually look like in NATO? And what does it look like, especially if the concerns about the US commitment to Article 5 are to be borne out, namely that Europe minimally will have to take more role? And my question then is, okay, where does the presumption from Henrik's talk was we're going to restage the operational plans of the Cold War, namely in a German border, every inch we defend. With the force numbers, that frontal lineal defence seems to me to be totally impractical. An urban-based, fortress-based system of defence in depth seems more likely, and indeed Margarita referenced the great Duchy of Lithuania, and if we look at Lithuanian military history from the Middle Ages and early modern period, it fought many famous and successful battles, but its fortresses, like every other early modern and medieval kingdom and monarchy, its actual military capability relied on it being anchored in a series of fortresses, castles and citadels. Long way of answering or asking, where does urban defence fit into your plans of defending your nations?
Thank you so much for the fascinating panel. Actually, it's a follow-up on what Tony just mentioned. First, for Margarita, thank you for reminding us with the time-bound relativity of the concept small, because you can be big at some point, like the Lithuanian Polish Commonwealth, and get smaller afterwards. And that has a lot, or has some impact on the strategic culture, the history, the self-perception, the resilience, and so on of the people. So it actually affects, even though it's a historical time-bound issue. But just very briefly, the joint expeditionary force that now the UK-led initiative that all of your countries are member of, and can you elaborate a bit more on the contribution or the perception of the GIF, basically, and how are you going to contribute in it in light of what Tony has just mentioned? And just also a very brief one on, so this is non-NATO, but on NATO issues, can you elaborate a bit how the joining process affected the political reforms and the military reforms in each of your countries? Mainly because this is a hypothesis, but the political impact in terms of reforms, so NATO turned to be, after the Cold War, as if it's a political reform organization, not a defense organization, because the members increased, their reforms package increased, but the force shrunk completely. So it became like a political reform organization as opposed to anything else. And yeah, without any plans, as Margarita said. I think Tony referred, NATO during the Cold War had the right to strike first, nuclear weapons, because the overwhelming superiority of the conventional forces of the Soviet Union in Europe. So then less aggressive, more reformist. How did that affect you? Thank you.
Hello, hi, thank you for the great panel. I'd like to refer my questions to, if we can get through all these, to the colleagues from Lithuania and Latvia. Where does your emphasis play on the stockpiling of ammunition, stockpiling of long-range missiles, this kind of aggressive, offensive defense in depth that long-range fires will provide if there is any kind of particular conflict? Where do you see yourselves in that as you play for time?
Dear Margarita, dear Sintija, as well as Mikael, I'm deeply grateful for your support to Ukraine. It's a huge amount of ammunition, contribution, 1% of GDP, coalition drones. it's a lot for support for us. Thank you very much for this. And as closer we live with this crazy enemy, as closer we understand what we have to do. Thank you very much.
Quite a lot already. Whew. Well, first of all our hearts are with Ukraine, and I know that our president yesterday has participated in the meeting in Kiev. And for us, it's not your war, it's our war as well. So we will win at the end. And coming back to the questions, well, I tried to pack some of them because I think that some of them are overlapping. And well, the question about how you got us. I think that we were lucky to have a wonderful window of opportunity to join in Euro-Atlantic institutions, because it would have been impossible to join EU without NATO, to join NATO without the EU at that time. Russia was weak, US was strong, and this idea of idealism and democracy promotion and promotion of good governance on the EU side was on the table, and we were the best pupils out of anyone, like Baltic countries, committed to our membership, doing whatever was asked for us, participating in peacekeeping cooperation, sending our very scarce troops whenever we were asked. With the EU, I was working at the EU committee under the government of Lithuania during our accession process. I was myself writing the reports to the Commission. We would do everything that they would ask. So that's why we are there. It's zeitgeist, history, and our strong, strong will to be there. And we are I'm very happy that we did that, because it helped us to transform our system. And here comes to your question. So we entirely changed the economic, political institutions, and we were lucky because we were small, easily absorbable, and that's why Lithuania is only one country in the European Union whose economy is growing at the moment. So we've done a miracle, but also that reflected on the other processes, on our integration into NATO. We were doing a lot. Luckily, we didn't have Soviet armed forces, so we were building our forces from the scratch with a lot of help of our partners, US, UK, also Denmark was one of the leading countries in Lithuania's case, helping us to structure our armed forces, Sweden in the case of Latvia, Finland in the case of Estonia. Lots of help and ready to learn and ready to contribute. Of course, we joined the NATO. When we joined the NATO, it was different from the Cold War situation. And the cooperation and partnerships was one of the major directions, and later on out of area operations. So, I mean, there are different zeitgeists in the evolution of international organizations, but I believe that NATO is changing again, and the NATO that we've joined in 2004 is not the same at the moment. Collective defense is back on the table as the most important task for NATO, and we can feel that. Apart from that, coming to the European Union, collective defense is back to the European Union. And it was also reaffirmed by Ursula von der Leyen in one of her speeches, and that is a task for the new Commissioner for Defense and Space in European Union. And this position is taken by former Lithuanian Prime Minister Andrius Kubilius. So his mandate is to build up European capabilities, because for us it's very important. I mean, it's very rich organization, very big organization of states, but it's a midget in terms of military capabilities. So the next cycle of the European defense is not going to be about the operations, but about the industry and developing their capabilities. We will not talk European army. NATO doesn't have army as well. Armies belong to the nation states. But we talk about the reducing the major flaws of the European Union countries' armed forces, that is underinvestment. So that's going to be a very big push of the European Union's side to invest more, to spend more on defense, and also including the European Union money. Probably joint borrowing. It's been put aside for a long time, but I think that the new signals that we're hearing from Germany as well, which was one of the most important blockages in this process, that could be released. So joint borrowing, using not used recovery fund money, it's again quite a big sum, around 2,000 billion, putting additional money in multi-annual financial framework, next multi-annual financial framework, from 100 billion to 500 billion euros for the next decade. I think that we will be facing major steps in that direction, plus the investment in the European defense capabilities. That's how we want to make sure that we have secure chains of supply. That was the problem we've seen during the Russian invasion in Ukraine. So investing in necessary capabilities, investing in munition. European Union is already doing this. They have certain measures made in order to boost the investment, to boost the joint procurement, to boost European defense industry. So that's going to be European side of the equation, and countries, in particular small countries like Baltic countries, will participate in this, also in these processes. For us, it's very important to be a part of these processes, but also build up our own defense capabilities to ensure the munition chains of supply. Lithuania just signed the huge contract with the Rheinmetall. We are building up the factory, which when it starts functioning, this factory will produce thousands and thousands rounds of munition. We have our own capacity, the only one state-owned industrial factory producing the 155 munitions, and it's being operational ever since, and we're producing at the moment a lot more than we need, but also we are trying to attract and build up our capacity to ensure maintenance. So we just opened the hub, which is the biggest hub in the Baltic countries, to ensure the maintenance necessary for the military equipment. So I would say national capabilities, but also international capabilities, using the European Union funds and projects to boost these capabilities. And the European Union will be more and more about financing the capabilities and boosting the industries. That's the direction where European countries are going. There are other issues. Jeff, right? It's very popular in Baltic countries, but you have to consider JEF as an entry force. It's not sustainable for a long time. So when we are talking about the reaction time, yes, it is very important, and that is also, it has the military dimension as an entry force, because if NATO doesn't act as quickly as it can, JEF is very instrumental. Also, it is the way to attract and keep UK in the region, because for us this cooperation is very important. We rely on multiple institutions, so NATO is still very important, but also European Union, due to the European security and defense policy, and also JEF as a format, because it's a military mighty format, and important for the rapid reaction. And to end up, I mean, in this very uncertain situation, for us, it is very important to use all the possible formats that we are members of, and also formal and informal. Nordic-Baltic cooperation is one of the formats where we're looking for. This cooperation has increased over the last years very much. For instance, our ministers of defense and foreign affairs and our leaders are consulting before going to the summits in the European Union, of the European Union, to make the positions maybe not equal but similar. We are voting on the same line. So plus Poland in the defense matters, plus Germany, because Lithuania is hosting German brigade. So these relations have been growing on very rapidly ever since. So this format is very important, and also Jeff. So here I stop because there are so many questions.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Margarita, for covering most of the topics. From the first one, how we were received, I have to agree with Margarita that we were there. We wanted to get there, so it didn't matter for us what we were asked to do. As far as, you know, our aims and values were on the same line. You know, we did everything that needed to be done in order to get there, in order to return to transatlantic community, to the system where we, as the Latvians, we strongly believe we deserve to be, and we are part of that. So the role of national identity, I would argue, was extremely important to get back on track when it comes to reintegration into transatlantic community. And we can see in the Eastern Partnership countries, it is a bit of pickle, right? So we are very happy that we were on the same page internally on that, and then we were appreciated from our partners as well. And in 2004, if we think about European Union, that was the biggest expansion. 10 countries were accepted into EU. So we were lucky in a sense, but also we were willing to do everything we can. We put aside many things on internal level. One of them is, of course, integrational policies that we can discuss afterwards. Of course, after Soviet occupation, we have a huge number of Russian-speaking minority living in Latvia. So that is a challenge, even now, being part of NATO and EU for 20 years already, right? So we have put aside many things in order to achieve our integration into EU and NATO. The question regarding the crisis in EU, NATO, or can we rely on them? I mean, you know, valid question, especially hearing what is coming from the White House, you know, and I'm not gonna lie. Of course, the situation among Latvian society, ordinary people, is quite tense. We are worried, and now after Trump's latest talks, even the worry have reached the professional part of society, those who deal with those kind of issue and wasn't worried before. Now they are getting worried, but nevertheless, the thing that probably keeps us in believing is our own capabilities and everything that Margarita mentioned, and our commitment to really work towards them. But also, especially if we think about EU, those institutions are growing through the crisis. As long as there's a political will from member states, we can manage those challenges and obstacles and overcome them. That is probably, you know, the very holistic approach, but the idea that is there and that pushes to achieve practical matters. NATO reforms and our accessions, they of course affected us directly. Everything that needed to be done was done, of course, with the help of our partners. I don't know if I missed everything, and Margarita mentioned a lot of things, so I'll stop here.
Yes, I was asked to elaborate a little bit on our membership. I mean, it's one of these cases where the reality is pretty simple. It is not such a complex issue. I mean, it comes down to basically security guarantees. I mean, we were extremely scared. I mean, with the deteriorating security situation in the world, Russia's full-scale invasion, threat to European security order. I mean, a new situation where basically Sweden thought to join the alliance, there's safety in numbers. It is not much more complex than that. It's not this kind of many hidden layers kind of membership situation. I mean, and what to me makes that very concrete is the cross-party alliance. I mean, the fact that the Social Democrats, who traditionally not have been proponents of NATO, switched sides, and it was a collective effort. And the background, as I mentioned, it comes down to what happened in the world combined with our lack of own resources, basically. When it comes to our contribution, I mean, one area where we really can contribute would be when it comes to competence about Arctic and subarctic fighting. I mean, that's an area which is very needed, and where Sweden, by its geographical location, have had to become quite good at it. Military reforms. I don't have as much as my colleagues to say on this one, because I would say that we're starting the reforms right now. We're kind of trying to deal with things as they come along, while there's an ongoing war in Ukraine, where the Swedish foreign policy, I mean, the highest Swedish foreign policy priority at this point is to support Ukraine. So it's kind of, ask me in 5 years, then I can probably give a more extensive answer on exactly what the reforms have been, but we're trying to figure it out now as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we go for another round of questions, or should we conclude here? No more questions? So we can conclude. بالشكر الجزيل.
I would like to express my thanks and gratitude for the organizers to invite me to moderate this session. Thank you very much.